This is a micro lesson on one of the most important concepts you'll probably ever be introduced to. I'm building on the idea of talent stacks, and I'm going to add to that something new. Now, a talent stack, if you haven't been introduced to this, I came up with this way of thinking in 2013. It had to do with the idea that you could stack different talents that you could acquire over time, but if you did them intelligently, they would be worth a lot more than being an expert at one thing. So let's say you went to school to become an engineer. You would need to master about 95% of that field. I'm just picking numbers out of the air here, in order to be a good engineer at your job. But here's the thing I'm going to add, that it is deceptively easy to pick up other layers so long as you're only trying to pick up the important 80%. Now, you wouldn't necessarily be able to learn in 1 hour how to become a great writer. But if you look at a piece of material that's around the internet quite a bit, it's a viral article I wrote on how to be a better writer. It would take you 10 minutes to consume it and learn it, and most people who have say that it completely changes the way they communicate and makes it much, much better. So there are a lot of things like writing, I would say even speaking in terms of learning the technique. You still have to practice it, but in terms of learning the techniques, probably less than an hour for everything you would need to know, and then you would just need to practice. Negotiating, probably the same thing. Probably you could learn at least 80% of everything you needed to know in about an hour if you put some time into it. And certainly how to be good at social media if you had the right lesson, about an hour to learn which social media platforms are good for what, how to use them, what's good etiquette, what works, what doesn't, what makes something viral. So the field of business, for example, might be a little bit bigger. I know a lot of engineers who would learn engineering and then at night they would take business classes, maybe to get an MBA. So this one, maybe you would need a little bit closer to full knowledge to acquire it. But think in these terms. Look for things that you can easily add to your stack in less than an hour. I would argue that photography is one of those things. You couldn't learn to be a professional photographer in 1 hour, but you could learn 80% of the things that they need to take a good picture. What are the concepts? What are the basics? And you'd be right there. And you'd be able to add essentially a layer to your stack. Now, part of the benefit of the talent stack is not just that these talents would work well together. Imagine being an engineer who also understood business, could write well, knew how to speak in public, knew how to negotiate, and was a master of social media. Well, even just good at social media. Well, then you're Elon Musk, because he has something like this and even bigger talent stack. So you see that they work well together. But on top of that, they also work well as things that will make you think of new ideas. The more different fields that you have at least a passing understanding of, the more things you can bring to your creativity, because everything that looks like it's new is pretty much a combination of things that exist, just put in different combinations. So the more things you know of, the more things you've absorbed, the more you can be creative, because you're just taking things off the shelf of the things that you've acquired over time. So those are some of the ways in which a talent stack is a good strategy. It tells you exactly what to do with your life. If you're young, start with some kind of a base. You might change your career later, but it's good to just start with something. Start adding talents, and especially look for those that you can add in less than an hour. And that will be one of the most useful things you've ever learned.